This is from the first part when I'm talking about, you know, getting into music, and I got into music in the post-punk scene, which is a very exciting time. When we broke in back in the late 70s, we fought the big one, and yeah, it was a bit of an heroic scrap against the alleged enemy, the perceived academy, and the willing audience, the hostility. We didn't really want much that was in the big house of rock music. We just found ourselves with the space that it had been taking up. We got it, it was too easy. So we had to find some stuff of our own. That post-punk scene was so finely balanced. A revolutionary fever got hold of people. It was exciting. The future was there all of a sudden. Things were possible. So people had walked in and found each other by recognising certain stances and haircuts and books held under arms and styles of coats and shoes and ways of talking. They had all done the best they could to look right, quick as a flash. Now they had to bring something out of their own to the situation. And this was a conundrum for many like me. You had to take the mic and say something. At the same time, there wasn't anything much to work with that you could appropriate or pull into your personal sphere. I loved all the flaming creatures like John Lydon and Iggy Pop and Alan Vega. They had conviction and righteousness. They had cultural scenes that they had walked out from, contextual stuff, undoubted authority and composure. To be American and play rock music is no real stretch. It's all yours. The patois and the changes, they're all natural. To be Australian and to do it is to put on a mask, the accent and the modes. The British had this leap across the stage to make as well. They also had their own music hall and folk traditions. For me, for us, it was a leap of shame in many ways, especially in a game that saw the singer or actor as possessing some aspect of being real or true. Add to that the general self-effacing she'll be right culture, and it was a room full of problems. Australians loved their larrikins but shook their heads sadly as mud glares came to a cropper one after the other, trying just a bit too hard to jump out of their skin. Mud glares were not cheered on, the crowd waited for them to be crushed. All Australian artists were and are mud glares. I went home to my hometown early on in the piece. I had my hair cut short. Everybody had frizzed out. It was all bad, shapeless hair then. A geezer I'd gone to school with lunged at my face with a beery breath blasting, barked the question, "What's the 10 for with the short hair?" I thought that was funny at the time, trying to get hip and heavy with CB radio jive talk. Otherwise, after punk rock, after we came in through the window and sat around learning to play the guitar, we never really engaged with much else in the way of contemporary stuff for a long time. Occasionally things crossed over. We didn't know what to do about that. Because the year zero vibe, there was a lack of roots. There was no language of emotion or sensuality or sensitivity, for instance, save for Alan Vega. When the Sex Pistols had appeared, it was great to see people, instead of all that sexual pimping and preening that people like Rod Stewart traded on. That shit was exhausting. What were females expected to do in any social interaction there? With punk rock and its aftermath, there was space for males and females to exist in different ways. Then they had to find out how to talk about things again. It was all abstraction. The British went for roots by way of reggae, and the Scottish reached for the Velvets and Creedence. On the postcard label, the word was Orange Juice with the first Velvets album. Joseph K. were White Light, White Heat. That was great shorthand, massive jumping codes. The 70s were still too close, and the scene had to move away from that kind of hippie stuff. The Velvets, the Dolls and the Stooges accepted, of course. Reggae was great because it was full of arcane prophecy and dread. It had form and history and black magic. Not when white people played it, though. It wasn't until the Cramps came busting out all over the place that things got really loosened up. They were the greatest. Along with them came Alex Chilton and his slurred, starry-eyed, sun-blasted, cooked legend of the 3 Big Star albums and his solo masterpiece, Like Flies on Sherbet. Along with that came Jim Dickinson and his whole Memphis trailer park, Charlie Feathers, Tab Falco, Panther Burns and the Gun Club. It was a whole mad language of unashamed emotion and tongues of fire. Like Sun Records all over again, these crazy cats all came in on a midnight train, hopped up on speed and juice. It wasn't a nostalgic return, it was a bringing back of possibilities and identities, another portal through time. Then on the second album, the Cramps brought psychedelic punk to the party. They didn't invent it, they tried it on and it took off. Then they brought burlesque. The cramps were not inevitable, and thank Christ they bothered to show up and explode. Things were getting pretty Robespierre-y in there for a while. I mean, asexual and Puritan. Yeah, so I go through...